everyone. Welcome to the Studying Law in the UK webinar. My name is Semra Yalçındoğan. I am the Education Manager at the British Council, working here for 17 years. Today, I'm joined by Sam Thorpe, who is the Regional Manager at University of York. Unfortunately, our second panelist cannot join us today due to a personal reason. Before starting the webinar, I would like to give you a bit of information about the British Council. We are the United Kingdom's international organization for cultural relations and education opportunities. We work with over 100 countries in the fields of arts and culture, English language, education, and civil society. We deliver our work in line with our global policy of equal opportunity and welcome people from all sections of the communities. Our key role is to support you with your UK education journey by providing most up-to-date and accurate information on studying and living in the UK. Let me share some housekeeping notes with you. The webinar is open to all students and parents. The webinar will be in English and we are unable to offer any translation during the live event. This session will last for 1 hour. We'll record this webinar and share it widely through our channels, and we'll also send you a link of the recording as well. Our panelists will be happy to answer your questions. Please do write them in the question and answer section. We'll do the questions at the end. This week, we are organizing 7 webinars, and we have 4 more webinars on arts and design, computer science, business, and jobs of the future in the next 3 days. Don't forget that subject-specific webinars are suitable for potential undergraduate students. Jobs of the Future webinar is suitable for everyone. Just to remind, if you are interested in similar activities, please make sure that you sign up with our newsletter and you follow us through our social media channels. Now, I would like to hand over to Sam to deliver this session. Sam, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Semra. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes. All clear.
Okay, right, well, hello everybody. Thank you ever so much for coming. I hope this is a useful webinar for you. It certainly should be if you're thinking about applying to law in the UK and you're thinking about maybe becoming a lawyer in the UK or in your home country as well. So I'm just going to share my screen with you. Bear with me 1 second whilst I bring up my presentation. And can you see that, Semra?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so this presentation is about studying law in the UK, and it's also a quick guide to becoming a lawyer in the UK. So we're going to look at a few things. We're going to look at what types of lawyers there are, the types of courses available, and the different pathways into those careers that you're going to have to follow. But first of all, I'm going to talk briefly about why law is so popular in the UK. So this morning, I had a quick look at some data, data that UK universities share amongst each other. It's always 2 years old, so it's not perfect, but it does show that across the entire world, for students coming to the UK, law is the second most popular programme. So why is that? Well, first of all, we have internationally recognised qualifications. Now, that doesn't mean that you can just study a 3-year LLB and then go and be a lawyer in any country. It doesn't mean that at all. But what it means is, as the first step, it is very well recognised around the world. OK, and actually 1/3 of the world's population operates within common law, or at least a mixture of common law and civil law. And common law is like unwritten law, and it derives from the UK. So the UK has had a very heavy influence on laws in countries around the world. There's also hundreds of law firms operating across the UK, so it's a really good place to be once you've graduated with your law degree if you're looking at your career prospects. And also when you come to the UK and you study a bachelor's degree, it's shorter than if you go to somewhere like the US or Canada. So here it's just 3 years, and in those countries it would be 4. And similarly for a postgraduate degree, which you'll also have to do for both lawyer routes, that's a 1-year master's in the UK, whereas that would be 2 years in some other countries. So when you're looking at a subject like law, you have to add up all of that study time, plus you have to do work experience time. So anything that shortens that period to being qualified as a lawyer is seen as really beneficial. So there's a few reasons why law is very popular in the UK. But when I speak to students at education fairs and they ask me about law, often they say, I want to study law because I want to become a lawyer. But there's quite little understanding about what a lawyer is. So here in the UK, a lawyer is quite a general term. It basically means that you are qualified to offer legal advice as a licensed practitioner, and that's the key bit. A licensed practitioner, and we have two kinds of those mainly in the UK. We've got solicitors and barristers. Both of those are lawyers, but they're both very different types of lawyers. Now, you don't have to be a licensed practitioner to work in the law industry here in the UK. There's plenty of other jobs available within law that don't require you to have a license. And a good example of that would be something like a legal advisor. So if you did an LLB in the UK and then you didn't want to become a lawyer, but you did want to work in law, you could then go on to do an LLM, let's say in global commercial law, and then you could work within a big international corporation being a legal advisor. And that person would be very important because you'd be helping the company operate within international laws so that they don't get in trouble, which can be very costly. And so you can have a really good career as a legal advisor and make a good salary. So please don't think that to study law in the UK, you have to become a lawyer afterwards. It's not true. OK. But let's have a look at the two types of lawyers that we have in the UK. So these are our legal practitioners. So we've got a solicitor. Now, generally, you can think of a solicitor as operating outside of the courts. OK, so when somebody says, right, I'm going to call my lawyer, you'll be hearing from my lawyer, what they really mean is they're going to get in touch with their solicitor. And an example of that might be if my neighbour is putting up a fence between our two houses, maybe they put the fence up too far to my side and I think, hang on, you're stealing my land, you've crossed the border. I would ask them, please don't do that, move it back. And if they refuse to, I could then say, right, well, I'm going to see my lawyer about it. You'll be hearing from my lawyer. So I would go to the solicitor. The solicitor would do some research. Maybe they're a specialist in property law. Maybe one of their colleagues is, but they would advise me on what to do. And they might contact the neighbour, first of all, to say, stop this or we will take it to court. If there's a lack of clarity about where the border is, then maybe there'll be a negotiation to be had, and a solicitor can often negotiate for their client. They can also undertake advocacy on small minor cases. Now, advocacy is where the lawyer represents you in court and they put forward your case and make your plea. OK, so they might make a plea and put forward a persuasive argument in order for that case to go in your favour, but only in small minor cases. So let's say this doesn't get resolved and my neighbour then picks up a spade and hits me over the head, and that's the end of me. Well, that is very serious then. It does happen, believe it or not, and that would then go to a much higher court. OK, and a barrister would be involved. You can tell a barrister because they're wearing a wig and a black gown in the UK. They work at much higher levels than solicitors. They mainly act as advocates, as I've just explained, and they're specialists in key areas of law. So they might often be called for their expertise in that area of law. Barristers are also commonly self-employed. So they would work self-employed from a chambers, which is where they would have their tenancy, but they can also be employed by large organisations like banks, corporations, and also solicitors' firms. So think of a solicitor as dealing with things outside of court mainly, and then a barrister within court because they can be called to the bar. A barrister has bar training, a solicitor does not. Okay, that's the key differences. Now, some people might think, oh, well, it sounds better to be a barrister then. You know, some people might be into law because of courtroom dramas that they've seen on television and things like that. OK, but it's not necessarily the case that a barrister would earn more money than a solicitor. There are lots of things to factor. A barrister might not get as much work as a solicitor. So a solicitor might be paid slightly less, but get more work in. It also depends on what area of law you specialise in and where you live in the country. So there's lots of things to factor in when you're deciding whether you want to become a solicitor or a barrister. Okay, so that's the difference between the two, but they both start with the same thing. So if you're looking to study law at undergraduate level, either to become a solicitor or a barrister, you must start with the LLB. And it has to be a qualifying law degree. If it is not a qualifying law degree, it will not help you become a lawyer. So it's very important that once you've got your 5 university choices on UCAS, you check that each of those is offering a qualifying law degree. And I'm going to show you now on our website how that would look. So on our course page at York for the LLB, it's going to be under accreditations, because that's what it is to tell you that it's qualifying. So you just scroll down a bit to the accreditation section and you can see here, this degree is a qualifying law degree, QLD in brackets, accredited by the Bar Standards Board. That's important if you want to be a barrister. Remember, being called to the bar in court. And Solicitors Regulation Authority, which is important if you want to be a solicitor. So check on the course pages of your choices before you make them your actual choices. Okay. Also within the LLB, something similar between the two career paths is that you're going to want to get as much work experience as possible whilst you're studying. And there's 2 types of work experience which are most common. First of all, you've got vacation schemes. These are short 1 to 2 week work placements during your holiday periods of study. They're really beneficial for solicitors. Then there's mini pupilages. Now, a pupillage is a type of work placement that you have to get if you want to become a barrister, and we'll talk about that more shortly. But before you do your pupillage, you can actually apply for mini pupillages whilst you're a student. And that's really important if you want to become a barrister, because large law firms in the UK often make these mini pupillages the first step in their recruitment process for the pupillages, which there are few of and it's hard to get. So it's really important that you consider that. And we'll talk a bit more about it shortly. Finally, in your LLB, you really must graduate with at least a 2-1. So in the UK, we've got the first, that is the top score you can get at university, a first. Then you've got a 2-1, then a 2-2, and then a third. So you need at least a 2-1 because less than 10% of UK lawyers achieved below a 2-1. It's a very, very competitive industry. Okay. So after the LLB, this is where the pathways to being a solicitor or a barrister really start to diverse and go off on different routes. So let's look at them individually. We've got how to become a solicitor. And as you can see, it's going to take a total of 6 years minimum. OK, so you've really got to be sure this is what you want. Now, the first 3 years, as we've discussed, is the LLB. You're going to get some work experience, graduate with a 2-1, which is the equivalent of a 3 out of 4 in a GPA in Turkey. Then after that, you're going to look for something called the LLM, legal practice, or something with a similar course title. This replaces what you might have heard of previously, called the LPC. By the time you graduate from an LLB, we're not going to use the LPC anymore. So forget about that. After your LLB, you're looking for an LLM in legal practice. It is a 1-year postgraduate law degree. And that is going to prepare you for the next stage, which is this, the SQE 1 and 2 assessments. These are new. The reason that they've been put in place is to open up law to more people, to make it more accessible for them. Essentially, this LLM legal practice will prepare you for taking these assessments. Now, you have to take the SQE1 and pass it first before you can take the SQE2. So if you do the SQE1 and pass it, you could take the SQE2 straight away, or you might like to get some of this. Some of your 2 years qualifying work experience, which is also essential. The reason that you might like to get some of this done first is because this work experience will better prepare you for the SQE2 assessment. Okay, it's up to you, but that's just what some people recommend. So We'll talk about this stage in more detail now. This 2 years of qualifying work experience has to be completed before you can become a solicitor. And you can do it either with 4 different law firms, and that would be 6 months in each law firm doing different types of jobs, or you can do the entire 2 years in one law firm if you wish. But what's really important is that the work you do is signed off by a solicitor as being qualifying work experience. Once you've got all of these things, your LLB, your LLM, which has prepared you for these assessments, you've passed these assessments and you've got 2 years total of qualifying work experience, you can then apply to the SRA, which remember is the Solicitors Regulation Authority, to be admitted as a solicitor. And as part of that administration process, they will do a character assessment of you to make sure that you are a suitable person for this role. That's a simplified description of the 6 years it's going to take to become a solicitor. Okay, so now let's look at how that's different to becoming a barrister. So to become a barrister, you'll first notice it takes less time, which is surprising because it's a higher level. So 5 years to become a barrister, but don't let that fool you into thinking it's an easier route. It is not. So to become a barrister, we're going to do our LLB once again. But during our LLB, in year 2, we're going to try and do some mini pupilages, remember? And then we're also going to start researching where we might like to do our actual pupillage. We're going to start researching that in year 2. And then in year 3, you're going to apply for a pupillage. You want to get confirmation of a pupillage well in advance if you can, in a perfect world, before you start this next stage, which is the BPC. Now, you may have heard of the BPTC. By the time you graduate, we're not doing that anymore. So this is another change, again, for the same reason, to make it more accessible to people. So we're going to do a BPC, which is vocational education, and it is a bar course. This is what is giving you your bar training, and that's what's different between the solicitor and the barrister. Okay, so this is a 1-year qualifying postgraduate law degree, and after we've finished that, we are going to start our pupillage. Hopefully you've secured your pupillage because you've got a window of time between finishing your BPC to starting your pupillage. The longer you leave it, the harder it is going to be to get a pupillage, and after 5 years you don't stand a chance of getting a pupillage because everything you'll have learned in your BPC will be old information. It won't be seen as relevant anymore. Okay, you're going to do your 1-year pupillage, and that is much like an apprenticeship. So you're going to be shadowing a barrister for the first 6 months of that year. For the second 6 months, you're going to be taking work on of your own. So putting everything you've learned from these 4 years and the first 6 months of this apprenticeship into practice. And then after that 6 months, all being well, you'll be invited to become a member of chambers. At that point, you might want to find yourself a tenancy. So in a chambers, and that basically means finding yourself an office to rent because you're self-employed with other barristers, or you can go and work for a large organisation. That's the difference between the two routes. The difficulty to becoming a barrister is this bit here, the pupillage. They are few and far between, so very competitive to get a pupillage, and you have to look well in advance to know how many pupillages are going to be available in your year that you need to get one. Okay, so with that in mind, you probably tell already that it's really important that whichever university you do choose to go to, they have an established careers and development program, because you really need a lot of support when it comes to deciding on these pathways and pursuing those pathways. Okay, so when you're making your final university choices, check that your university does have a law-specific careers and development program. All universities will have a careers and placements department. That is not the same. You want to make sure that your law department has this. Okay, ask about the links that your department has with industry. Ask about the employer events that it hosts, and that might be employer fairs or all different kinds of styles of events, but it essentially puts you in touch with employers so that you can network, and also appointments that they might make you. And those appointments might be regular appointments with a mentor who is somebody working in the industry, not in the university. So you're learning from them, or various other types. Okay. Also check if there is a university managed legal advice clinic. So lots of universities that have a good law school have these clinics. What it is a free service to the public, because for the public who are on a lower income, seeking legal advice would be very difficult for them to do. It's expensive. So the universities operate a free legal advice clinic to the public, and the students benefit from that because they get to work in this legal advice centre, drawing up all the paperwork like you would do if you were a solicitor, and also giving legal advice. So make sure your university's got one of those. At York we have one, and we can guarantee you work experience in it. And then also, just to finish on this point, one way to check that your university choices do have an established careers and development programme would be to ask for a brochure or a manual or a web page on it, just so that you can read the information for yourself. And I'll show you now what York's looks like. So this would be ours, okay? And it will show you all the events and opportunities that are coming up between October and March. This one's for 2019, actually. And it will show you information about the free legal advice service that we offer and the mentoring schemes as well. So look into that and do your research. And I'm just going to introduce you now to someone called Chris Wilkinson. So Chris Wilkinson works at the University of York. He's the full-time employability tutor in the York Law School. So he's responsible for the design and implementation of that programme, which I've just shown you. And Chris advises students on making applications to law firms, writing cover letters, CVs, doing interviews like practice interviews, assessments, and career planning, so advising you on which route might be the right choice for you. And he also delivers one-to-one guidance sessions for students as well. So a lot of universities will say 95% of our graduates are in employment within 6 months of graduating, and use that as their employment kind of strapline. Well, that's fine, and it's great, and it's true, but you want to know more specifically for York, so contact the department. Okay. And next thing to look at when you're choosing a law degree in the UK is the teaching and assessment methods, because these do vary. So the old traditional style of academic teaching would be to give you lots of lectures throughout the year. You've got to digest this information and then revise before you sit exams at the end of the year. And at some universities, you won't get any provisional grades until right at the end of the year. Some will mix it up, they'll do some mid-year assessments, and some will assess you all the way through. So look into that, because it's very important. Personally, I would prefer to be assessed throughout the entire year rather than a few weeks at a particular point of the year. I don't think that would give me a true reflection of my overall performance. Okay, so the way we teach at the University of York is a much more practical approach to teaching. It's called problem-based learning. So when we set up our York Law School, because there were lots of law degrees already on offer at lots of very good universities, they said, well, what can we offer that's different, that will appeal to a certain type of person? So we decided to teach law fully through what is called problem-based learning. So instead of having lecture after lecture and then sitting exams at the end of the year, we put you into a pretend law firm. We give you cases to work on and the tools to solve those problems effectively. Because if I start my day at work, nobody's coming to me at the start of the day to say, here's all the answers. At some point during the day, you're going to need those. Like in a lecture, when you're going to sit an exam at the end. That's just not what happens. You have to learn how to problem solve yourself. And there's methods and ways of thinking to help you do that. And that's what we're focusing on at York. And this has impacted everything within our law school, from the way that we designed our teaching spaces. And you'll see why. I'm going to show you a video on problem-based learning. So it's affected the classrooms. It's affected who we've hired within our staff community. So instead of taking on staff that have worked in teaching in the old traditional way for 20 years, we've taken people on who are really passionate about problem-based learning. It's also affected the class sizes. For problem-based learning to work, we have to have smaller groups. We have to have a higher staff to student ratio. And it's also affected the recruitment process of students, because we have up to now had an interview stage because of problem-based learning, but due to COVID, we've replaced that with a self-assessment. So it really is important that you understand the differences between the teaching methods. A university like the University of Leicester, who was going to be presenting with me today, they do a blend of both. They offer some modules through problem-based learning, but some the old academic way. I'm going to show you a video now. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen actually for a moment, Samra, because I think I might need to include the video audio. So bear with me one moment. Okay. Okay, so this is a video on problem-based learning.
Problem-based learning is a very distinctive learning resource at York Law School. A group of students will come together and will be given a problem, and they have to take that problem apart, analyse it, and arrive at a set of learning outcomes which will help them learn about the area of law which is introduced by that scenario. The key part of PBL is working as a team to take apart a problem and arrive at ways of researching the underlying law. The first stage of PBL is to identify any unclear terms and to collate the key information within the problem. The first part of that is to read the problem as a group. Then the group need to gather the key information. So what they will do is they will try to identify the key parties within the problem and then say what the drivers of each of those key parties are. They will then identify the key facts within the problem and will determine the chronology of the happening of those key facts. Stage 2 is to define the problem. The first part of that is to arrive at a summary, turn the problem into about 2 sentences of summary. The next thing they will do is they will come to put a name to the problem. The third stage of PBL is the free brainstorm, where the individuals within the group will contribute their ideas that will be captured by the scribe and put up onto the smartboard. The fourth stage of PBL is to arrange those ideas that have been put into the brainstorm. So the way that they've put up there may not necessarily be well structured, and they will as a group work to put some structure to the information they've put onto the smartboard. Stage 5 of PBL is to define the learning outcomes. Looking at the brainstorm that they have put together, we'll look around it and determine from that what learning outcomes they believe they need to come to be able to answer the problems that arise out of the scenario. Stage 6 of PBL is that the group will go away and individually research, using the university resources, those learning outcomes to find answers to those problems. The final stage, stage 7, is that the group will reconvene, usually 1 week later, and will share with each other the results of their self-directed study, researching the learning outcomes that they've arrived at.
Excellent. Okay, so that video explains a bit about our problem-based learning approach to teaching. So hopefully you'll bear that in mind when you're choosing your university. Look at the teaching and assessment methods. The other thing that you're going to want to consider as well when you're choosing a university are, of course, the entry requirements. So the York Law School is part of a Russell Group university, and we're quite highly ranked. We're ranked 17th in the Times and the Guardian rankings overall, and also our York Law School itself is ranked 17th in the country, and anything top 20 is excellent. So naturally, our entry requirements are a little bit higher than some of the lower ranked universities. But what you can find, if you're not getting high grades overall, is that there will be some law schools in, middle ranked universities with a lower overall ranking, but a really good ranking in their law school. So that's something that you can look into if you're not getting the high grades. But typically we would look for AAA in your A levels, 36 points in your IB, or 82% in your Turkish high school diploma. We don't look for specific subjects because we don't expect you to have studied anything like law at school, but we'll also ask for the equivalent of an IELTS 6.5 with no less than 6 in each component. Okay. Now, because of COVID, those English language requirements have really opened up. The IELTS test centres commonly closed, so we made lots of online alternative tests available. So at York, we also accept Duolingo, TOEFL IBT, IELTS Indicator, and Language Cert. All of these are online alternatives. So when you've got your 5 choices, look for the preferred English test that is accepted by all universities and choose that one. Okay, and then of course look for things like the LNAT. The LNAT is a test which some universities will want you to take in order for you to apply for law there. We don't ask you to take that. It's an aptitude test. We just ask you to do the self-assessment instead. Okay. And now I'm going to show you how you might go about finding all of this information that I've given you, again, on the York web pages. Okay. So go to the home page of the website, and from there you'll see a dark blue box in the right corner. This is the course search function. Select undergraduate, type LLB and hit enter, and it's going to be the top result here. The LLB 3 years single subject. This is the one that you want. Now when you click on this course page, it's going to give you tabs. It's going to give you general overview. Look at the course content because this lists the modules that you're going to study. This will help you differentiate between your university choices because they'll all have foundation law modules, they'll have to, but as you progress through the years, different universities will offer different optional modules. So if you're particularly interested in some of the optional modules on offer at a certain university, that might be a good reason to choose them. You can also look into the teaching and assessment methods from the course page. You can find that problem-based learning video that I've shown you. There's information on careers. And then I'm going to scroll down and show you how you can contact the law department to ask them specific questions. So on every single course page at York, we've got this dark blue banner here. And on here are the contact details for someone within our law department who you can ask any questions to about the course. Don't be afraid of getting in touch. It's a good thing to get in touch before you make your final choices. And our team will be really happy to hear from you. So look at that, and then also a tiny bit further down, we've got some virtual tours. So you can do a virtual tour of the campus, get familiar with the grounds as well. Okay. So that brings me to the end of the presentation on law. Thank you ever so much for your time. I hope that you've learned some valuable things from it, and I'll now be ready to take any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Sam. This was very clear and informative. I hope our audience found it useful as well. Yes, dear students, do you have any questions? Please type them in the question and answer section. We'll read them out and answer them for you. Well, we don't have any questions at the moment. Sam, in this case, let's wait for another minute. I know the students are there though.
Well, what I might do, Semra, is type my email address
Sure.
into the chat function, just in case people want to get in touch with me afterwards, and they can contact me directly with any questions. So I'll just, did you see that go in then?
Yes.
Excellent.
But it is in the chat section. People won't be able to see it, so I need to post this onto the question and answer section.
Okay.
So let me do that. Yeah, they won't be able to see it. I shared it. Yes, we have questions now.
So if I want to get into business, what type of law should I study? It really depends on what type of job you want to do within legal business. So you can be a lawyer and specialize within like commercial trade and law and things like that. Or you can be a legal advisor. So the question isn't, you know, what do you need to do to work within the business area of law? The question is, what type of job do you want to do in that area? Do you want to be a solicitor who could advise clients who are maybe setting up their own businesses? Do you want to be a legal advisor within a large corporate company? Or do you want to be a barrister who would be called upon for advice on such legal matters? I guess the most popular route would actually to be a legal advisor. Most people who do a law degree in the UK don't actually go on to be lawyers, and that's not because they're not very good or they didn't do well in their degrees. It's because that's the career path that they chose. There's good prospects from it, and less hoops to jump through, if you like.
Thanks, Sam. Maybe we can also touch on graduate route, because students will have an opportunity to practice their knowledge and stay in the UK up to, I think, 2 years after their study. Maybe you can touch on that. And yeah. That's
right, yes. So you only get to do the graduate route once. So either after your bachelor's degree or after your master's. But essentially it allows you to stay in the UK for 2 years after graduating, whether you're working or not. And there aren't really any requirements to how much you have to be earning in order to stay in the UK and that type of thing. So you do have to apply for that as you're coming towards the end of your degree. But it's not a difficult application in terms of like only a few number are going to be allowed. The idea is that once we've kind of trained you up with our expertise in the UK, we at least give you a fair shot of using that work, that knowledge in a job in the UK. So that is something that you can definitely do. Graduates from this summer onwards will be able to apply for that.
Thank you. We have a couple of questions. What happens actually? Usually our audience is shy, but then start, asking. Let me put on the questions here. Could you please explain more about the self-assessment procedure?
Sure. Okay, so the interviews that we used to have before COVID were to check that you are the right type of person for problem-based learning. And what I mean by that is, to learn through problem-based learning, you have to be quite confident. You have to be willing to interact with groups quite well and openly, and to stand up in front of people and present your ideas, because that's what you're going to do in your practice law firm that will put you in. So if you're a person that's actually very reserved, quite shy, and you perform better under exam conditions, then maybe you couldn't be the right choice for you. But if you're confident, you think quickly on your feet, you're a people's person, then problem-based learning would be a good choice for you. So the interview that we used to have would test your ability to think quickly on your feet. And we used to ask you questions like, if law were a sport, which sport would it be and why? And of course, in an interview, students weren't expecting that kind of question. So you'd get one of two reactions. And I used to do it with students at education fairs all the time. Either they freeze and they just don't know what to do, or they give you a really creative answer. And the point isn't the answer that you actually give, it's the delivery and the way that you respond to it. That's what we were looking for. That's the type of thing that we would ask in the interviews. But now with the self-assessment, we just ask you to reflect on your own strengths and your own personality and make sure that problem-based learning is right for you. So it's not a test. Don't think of it as a test. We just want to tell you exactly what you're getting yourself into.
Great, thanks. Is there a difference between studying law in the UK and Scotland for international students?
For international students, you would have to ask the law department if there are any specifics that I don't know about. I would say generally not, no. But usually people would study in the UK. It's quite hard for people in England to go and study in Scotland because I believe they get free education there. So there is definitely a difference between education in Scotland and England, but you'd have to speak to the law department. Remember to contact that email address on the dark blue banner of the course page for specific questions like that.
In Scotland, undergraduate programs take 4 years, and some of the programs include masters as well. So when you graduate as a master's student, including undergraduates.
So the integrated masters options.
Integrated masters, yeah. Exactly. What if we want to take the LLB course but go on to international law afterwards?
That's perfectly fine. That would be a very common route to take. The LLB is going to give you all of the foundation knowledge that you need in law, with some optional modules to specialize in international topics if you want. But the LLMs exist to give international students a variety of specialisms to go into. So if you want to get into international law, that's perfectly fine. Do the LLB and then do an LLM in international law. But there'll be different types of international LLMs depending on what area of law you want to go into.
Mm-hmm. Can we do a master degree in the UK after studying law in Turkey? Yes, you can.
Yes.
But please explain if there's any kind of anything to be careful, because the law system and of course the education systems between two countries are different. So maybe you may have some tips to share.
Yes, it might be that if you've done a bachelor's degree in law in Turkey, that is not approved by the Solicitors Regulation Authority or the bar standards. So basically, it might not be a qualifying law degree for you to use in the UK. That's something to look out for.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure about this question. How competitive are summer schemes or summer schools? Probably.
Okay, I think I get what the student's getting at there. In terms of how many spaces are available for how many students are applying, it is quite competitive. That's why it's important to go to a law school that's got a good reputation. So law firms will know which universities typically churn out work-ready students, which universities produce students that have got great hands-on practical experience and can hit the ground running when it comes to work. So there are a lot of people applying for placements, that's true. And there are even more people applying for the pupilages, the mini pupilages, which makes it extremely competitive.
Mm-hmm. Another question, do I need a BA law degree to apply for MA law program? Yes, you do.
There are some conversion courses at master's level that we offer, so you don't always have to have a bachelor's degree in law to apply for one of our master's degrees in law. It depends which one you're applying for. If you're applying for a master's course in the UK and you haven't studied that subject at undergraduate level, we call that a conversion course.
Thank you. We have a couple of more questions. For Turkey, we have to come back for a year. Will that affect anything like finding a... I'm not sure about this, but yeah, for Turkey, we have to come back for a year. Will that affect anything? Also, if we take a different master's course, we are still okay to work in the legal field.
Okay, there is something to consider when you're talking about doing a qualifying law degree in the UK and then going to be a lawyer in a different country. So as I've said, our law degrees are internationally recognised, but I've described the set pathways to becoming either a solicitor or a barrister. And you've got to investigate what those pathways are in your own country. So you can take your UK qualifying law degree to another country, but you'll have to ask them, what additional things do I need to do to become a lawyer here? Because we've got those assessments in the UK now, but other countries will have different types of assessments.
Well, I can add something here. Students basically, when they come back to Turkey, they will check what other courses they will need to take. They are offered as conversion courses, and few institutions, universities offer those courses. Usually take 1 year or 1 year and a half. So once you complete your conversion courses, you'll be eligible to be a lawyer in Turkey as well. So bear this in mind. This is a tough question. I'm not sure how you will respond. Which other schools would you recommend?
I would recommend choosing 3 highly ranked universities and then 2 kind of safety net backup choices. That would be 2 universities that might be lower ranked overall with a good ranking in their law school. Just because if you don't hit the grades that you're hoping for, at least then you've got those 2 backup choices. I would personally, I've worked at Nottingham Trent University. I know that's a very good university. The way they teach, they've got a lot of achievements, such as University of the Year with the Guardian and the Times, and they've got a good law school. But really, as I've mentioned before, in those presentation slides, you need to contact them to ask them what type of careers support is available for the law department. That's what you should make your decisions on, I think, because that career support is really, really valuable to you if you're trying to become a lawyer.
Thank you. That's kind of a comment, but also maybe you can comment as well. I want to have my own business, so is studying law a smart idea? Well, it's a question, sorry. So what would you say?
Well, you could start up a business in anything, couldn't you? So starting up a business could be, starting up a food van or starting up a marketing firm or anything like that. So obviously, it's really important to have a basic understanding of the laws so that you don't break them. But if you're wanting to start up a business, your best option might be doing a business degree, which incorporates some law modules.
Well, I can only add, not related to law, but whatever you would study in the UK, you will gain a lot because UK education will give you the skills that you will need in your business to achieve, analytical skills, presentation skills, confidence, and so on. These are the areas or skills are not given by all institutions in Turkey, but you will definitely achieve something at the end, whatever you choose. Another question, and we have one more coming up. I'm a law graduate in Turkey. To become a solicitor in the UK, first of all, should I do LLM and then take the SQE? I believe I do. Don't have to study LLM again. So already a law graduate asking to take the SQA.
Yeah, so if you want to become a lawyer in the UK, you still have to take a kind of qualifying law degree that is approved by the SRA or the BSB. So what you're going to have to do is study a postgraduate, I think it's a 1 year LLM, or there's other things available such as the JD. There used to be something called the GDL. Basically, there are postgraduate qualifying law degrees that you can take, which will convert you to UK law so that you can then go on to take your SQE 1 and 2. So there are definitely options available to you. You just need a postgraduate qualifying law degree.
Thank you. Well, let's, so 2 more questions. What percentage, I'm not sure if you are able to answer this, what percentage of your law students can actually become solicitors or barristers?
Yeah, I mean, it changes each year. It doesn't just change each year because the quality of the students that graduate change each year, and also their ambitions, but because, for example, to be a barrister, there are only so many pupilages available each year, and that is very much affected by what's going on. So COVID had quite a big impact on the number of pupilages available, for example. So you would have to look into it and speak to the careers advisor within your law department closer to the time that you're actually going to be applying for those pupilages to know what your opportunities look like. I don't have those statistics on me for the previous year, I'm afraid. Sorry.
One final question. Also, my GPA is really low, lower than 2.2 in the UK. So most of the universities may not accept me as a master student if I get an acceptance from a relatively lower ranking university. Can I still become a solicitor?
So what you're saying is you've already done a bachelor's degree. So if you can find a qualifying postgraduate law degree, then yes, you'll have to do well in it. And of course, you've got to try and find some work experience. Maybe you've already got some, but it's definitely possible, yes. If you struggle to get an offer even from a mid-ranked or lower ranked university, you're going to have to start looking at doing a foundation in law. So a pre-masters. And lots of universities do offer those, including York. It just adds quite a bit of expense on. That's the only problem. Yes,
that's correct. Pre-masters. We received another question. How significant is it studying in a Russell Group University in the field of law regarding jobs?
Okay, so remember that I said if you're wanting to become a barrister, you have to start looking at pupilages in year 2 of your bachelor's degree. Well, at that point, you don't have a law degree. You don't have a transcript to say, look how well I've done in my law degree. You know, what you have is your advisor within the university who's going to have really good links with industry. And you're going to have your application and you're going to have the reputation of the law school that you've managed to get a place in. That's why the reputation of the law school is really important. And that's why for law, it kind of does matter if that's the route that you're wanting to take. So employers do recognise Russell Group universities as, you know, preparing students well for industry.
Thank you. One more question. If my high school GPA is lower, but my IB scores are well enough, am I able to get into a better uni with or without foundation? Doesn't matter. So GPA is lower, IB is maybe better than, you know, the student asked if he or she can, you know, attend a, get on to a, you know, law program with foundation or without. As long as IB scores meet the requirements, they will be able to, right?
Yeah, that's right. So we'll look at the overall score. And then we'll also treat one higher level subject like one A level. So if we do ask for a specific subject, which we don't for law, then we will tell you what score we want in those higher levels. But the IB is a fantastic qualification to do. And if you are doing it, you're very lucky. It will also put you in a good position if you want to apply for one of our university scholarships, because IBs give you a high score before you've even written the scholarship application form. So yeah, I wouldn't be concerned.
Mm-hmm. IB is quite straightforward, basically. For the GPA, do you look at all 4 years of high school? Do the grades you get in freshman year or sophomore matter?
We're mainly looking at your final years, because in a UK high school, your final years would be your AS and full A levels, and that's what gets you into university. So we'd be more concerned with your final, is it cumulative GPA? Yeah.
Cumulative, yes.
Yes.
GPA. Okay. Well, that's all. If dear students, if you don't have any questions, we'll release Sam. Sam, it's been fantastic. Thank you very much. Very informative, and we answered a lot of questions here. 18. Thank you very much. I think that's all. Well, thank you for today. this great presentation, and we can end the session now.
Thank you very much, Semra. It's been an
you.
absolute pleasure. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye, everyone.